fix now. I've been feeling it since 1966 now. Might be over now, but I feel it still. Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. Let me kick it like it's 1986 now. Might be over now, but I feel it still. Might have had your fill, but I feel it still.
You belong among the wildflowers. You belong in a boat out at sea. Sail away, kill off the hours. You belong somewhere you feel free. Run away, find you a lover. Go away somewhere all bright and new. I have seen no other who compares with you. You belong among the wildflowers. You belong in a boat out at sea. You belong with your love on your arm. You belong somewhere you feel free.
Good morning. Good morning. Garmin clock says it's 9 o'clock, and every Saturday morning I'm usually running or swimming for cancer research, so this morning's a little different for me. Tomorrow I'll get my 6K run for the Sydney Morning Herald Half Marathon. Well, I didn't expect that, Cam, thank you. So, I'm just going to continue being a pro. And apparently that's what you're supposed to do now. So this session is about listening for your next sale. And it's probably not the kind of listening you think it is about. This is about the conversation you never get to hear. It's the conversation where your prospect goes and takes your clicking meeting into their organisation and they have to sell you when you're not there. It's where most sales are actually made and lost. So this conversation is helping you understand how the person you have a clicking meeting with needs to speak to their manager, to the finance department, to the procurement division, whoever that might be, to move forward. If that's not the conversation you were expecting, the workshop next door is awesome, and I'd encourage you to go there. Okay? So, good morning. My name's Oscar Trimboli. I'm an expert in deep listening, and one of the things I want to do is listening to who's in the room right now. This tool's called Mentimeter, and you can all use it in your presentations. And what I do is use it to unpack my green sheet for the audience, because then my presentation is their presentation and not my presentation, and they'll listen to me longer. Okay, this is free, you can use it, and it'll change the dynamic of your presentations if it's appropriate to your IP. So I just want you, if you haven't, just go and vote right now about who's in the room, because I'm curious about the mix of who's here today. Okay, so right now you're really frustrated because somebody's asked you a question, but they're not listening to your answer. And I talk a lot about this in the context of engagement surveys in organisations where HR department asks a whole bunch of questions and they do nothing with it. And this is what the organisation feels like. They get these results coming up. 44% of you are white belts, 26 are yellow, 10% green, 8% blue, 1 red, Brian, thank you very much, and 2 blacks is what we got in the room. So, let's go and have some fun. I ask the audience regularly, what's the cost of not listening? And a lot of them, this is one I did last week in a workshop, 130 consultants in a technology organisation. It's proving my green sheet all the time. So, yeah, pizza was a big deal in this group because they have to stay back after hours. And so if they can't listen to the customer, they stay back and it costs them pizza. There's this whole pizza currency in this startup organisation. Yeah, they also have fun. So, but see how you're engaged with the presentation because it's not my content, it's yours or theirs. So listening matters. The other thing is I always ask this question. Compared to the average, how good a listener are you? Now I do some work with a professor over in university in Southern America and he asks exactly the same question all around the world and the percentages are exactly the same. Everybody thinks they're above average listener. Everybody. Now, Pete's in the room. I should have a standard distribution curve here, shouldn't I, Pete? Which means that the above average listener value is false. But the same thing is true if I ask you, how good a driver are you? You all think you're above average. But you're not. But you're not. So here's the thing. If I ask this room the same question, I would actually get the same result. I'm not going to go through that because I want to unpack the green sheet with you. But this is your struggle. Most of you are unconscious about the fact that you're a poor listener. So today, we're going to just spend a little bit of time listening for the next sale in the conversation. The reason it's frustrating for you is if you put a proposal in, sometimes you just hear crickets and you just get silence. You're just like, didn't I send you a proposal? Where's it at? I keep emailing you, I keep calling you, I never hear anything back. Or I send you a proposal, I follow you up and you go, oh yeah, there's a budget committee meeting coming up and we have to present it then. Or, oh yeah, I haven't had time to show it to my manager yet. Or, it's gone into the PMO office and it's been evaluated against a bunch of other projects, so I don't know what's actually happening with it. And your sale stuck because you didn't help them sell that to the person they needed to, and that's what this session's about. How to listen for the next sale that you're not going to be present in. Rachel Burke does an awesome job of explaining how you have to become a buyer coach, not a seller. How do you help someone become a buyer coach and not a seller? Now, I'm not here to sell Rachel's work, but it definitely takes what I'm doing to a completely different level, and I encourage you to explore that if it's relevant for your practice. But she talks about the fact that you need to help the buyer understand their journey and guide them through that journey. It's not just about the conversation you're going to have. So when I'm sitting in a clicking meeting, I think about myself through these 3 lenses. 1, I'm turning up as a thought leader. My IP matters, and I want to make sure that they're clear what I do and what I don't do. This number might scare you, but for 50% of my clicking meetings, I refer because I'm not the right person for their problem set. 50%. Not 1 in 10, about 50%. In fact, a lot of people in this room actually probably have got referrals from me as a result of that. So, yeah, you don't have to put your hands up. But your thought leadership, get really, really clear on that, and that's about the depth of your pink sheets. The second one is you're a process leader in the dialogue of the sale. For you, you sell every day. For them, they don't buy every day. So you have to help them with a journey of buying. If you are easy to buy, you will make more sales. If you are hard to buy, they won't buy from you. But often they don't even know their own process. Here's a really simple example of a conversation I had 3 weeks ago. Great, I'm really looking forward to working with you. It's $28,000, and they go, great, no problem. Now, when I was a white belt, I would have stopped. Now I just simply say, hey, I'm curious, for me to be set up as a vendor in your system, do you need a purchase order or is an invoice sufficient? And they went, oh no, invoice is fine. I said, well, great. If I have an invoice, I'm not a vendor in your system, so what do we need to do? And they just went, oh, that's a really good question. I said, well, typically it's finance or procurement. And they go, oh yeah, I know who in procurement. I go, oh, who's that? And they went, blah, blah, blah. I said, great. How long? 2 weeks. Pretty much that's what happened. But if I didn't ask that question, how do I get set up as a vendor in your system? You're not guiding them on the sale. Because they got too many things to worry about besides you. They got their next meeting to go to, so get all that stuff done in the meeting. That's what I mean about process leader. And then the last one, opportunity creator. My job is to listen not only for the problem they have that they think they're talking to me about, but I'm listening to their biggest problem. That's why I'm referring people in this room. I can't solve the problems Kieran can solve. I can't solve the problems that Corinne can solve. I can't solve the problems that Brian can solve. But I elevate my positioning by referring people in this room. So I want to create opportunity beyond me into the room. So let's look at a clicking meeting really quickly. Sorry, Rach, I just gave you a big rev up and you weren't here. Clicking meeting. Imagine this is either a 30-minute block of time, a 45-minute block of time, or a 1-hour block of time. But basically what we do is we turn up, we do a bit of, g'day, how you going? How's your weekend? Do the rapport building. And then you kind of, it's a bit about them, a bit about you, but you kind of do a little bit of your positioning matrix. And then you're unpacking a green sheet at some point during that dialogue as well. So today's conversation is about none of that. The only part of this conversation is this part of the conversation that I'm going to talk about, their buying process. That is the sale that matters. You are going to walk away and they're going to have to pitch you internally. So how are you going to help them do that? The way I think about it is this way. My world is broken up into less than 10 grand, 10 to 30 grand, and 30 grand and above. 30 grand's a big sale for me. For Corinne, it's not. As she said yesterday, 100 grand matters to her. She's leveling up. Okay, and that's why she's at black belt and why I'm not. The second part of this is the complexity of the sale. The thing I think about in the complexity of the sale is really, really simple. How many people does it impact in their organisation? 1 to 5, 6 to 20, or more than 20? If you're selling to organisations or public programs, some of this will be relevant, but this is mostly for selling into organisations. So again, you've got the opportunity to bail and go to the workshop if this isn't what you want for this dialogue today. It's really interesting because Matt always goes when they take the photos, you know, you've got a good model. So it's been interesting watching you guys go today because it's normally just stage lights and I can't see the audience really well. So 3 questions at each level. If I'm doing a 10K sale, it's typically a coaching program for me, one-on-one. I'm increasingly doing less and less of that every day. The question I need to ask once the sale's made is, what will be different for you? What will be different for your manager? What will be different for the organisation? I need them to say that because they're going to have to say that to their manager, to finance, and to their organisation. If they don't say it well, I guess the good news is I'm a coach and I'm going to coach them through that. But you need to ask that question, what's going to be different? So if I deliver this coaching for you, what's going to be different for you? And to be honest, for a lot of people, whether it's the husband or the wife, I often ask that question as well. So I don't do one-on-one coaching in those contexts. But one of the stakeholders I'm always thinking about is what it means for them personally. So what's going to be different for them? Next question, bigger sale, who else does this impact? Now they might say specific names or departments. The reason I'm asking that question, they're going to have to go and explain the value to them as well. Who else? Okay, who else? The next one, how are projects like this approved in your organisation? Because they don't know. It's their pet project. They don't have budget. So one of the good news and the bad news is I coach CFOs and I coach procurement leaders and I coach HRDs in my executive coaching work. So they give you all this glorious content. I can tell you the amount of time they spend talking about vendors in a coaching meeting is 3/5 of nothing. That is not their biggest problem. They're dealing with much bigger problems than our programs. So you need to know this because they often don't know the approval process. 2 years ago, I sat down with a HR director of a huge company in financial services, so you'd think they'd have a clue about ROI. I said, look, how are coaching programs evaluated here? And she goes, gee, no one's ever actually asked us that question. Now, that could have been a handbrake on the sale, except I went, in other organisations, they're evaluated like this, like this, like this, which just happened to line up to what I do really well. And she goes, great, could you come and talk to our L&D team about how we do evaluations going forward as well? It's like, of course, it would be my pleasure. But this is simply getting them to understand what they need to do to get the approval done. Let's move up the complexity ladder a bit, bigger sales. If you're going on this presentation, a kind of bottom third of this how model is kind of white and yellow. Next is green, blue, red, black. If you're trying to look at one of the exercises we did in pink sheets yesterday was how well can you apply a pink sheet from another domain? If you're trying to up your game, that's what we're doing here. So as we go up to 6 to 20, typically it's the training program, but you're impacting more than the person you're talking to with a training program as an example. So quite often we're not communicating to the people who are coming to the course or your program or your webinar. And you want to understand, how are you going to explain this? Because a lot of people don't think about how they communicate it to the attendees of your program. And again, quite often they'll go, oh, gee, that's a really good question. And I go, great, I've got a video you can use. I stole this off Dermot, by the way. I've got a video you can use. You can send that out to the attendees 5 days before the workshop starts. Oh, wow, nobody else has thought about that, thank you. Now, how long did it take me to do that video? Much too long than Dermot, but half an hour. But it allows me to charge more. But it gives them an artifact to sell me when I don't, and they don't have to sell me. It's like, hey, watch this guy's video. He's got a video on what he's going to talk about. Yeah? So how will we explain that? Again, which other departments are going to be impacted? It's a really, really critical question because you're going to get into logjam when you're selling these bigger programs, and the logjam isn't the value in your program, it's the sequencing inside their organisation. Which one goes first, which one goes second, which one goes third. Typically, finance run a process. They have a monthly governance program that they go through, or the PMO office will run and sequence these things. If you don't know this language, you need to know. And the easiest way to learn is just to ask the people you're talking to, they'll tell you. Just simply say to them, which other divisions, departments, agencies are impacted by this? If I was selling a public program, I'd simply say, apart from your spouse, who else would you need to talk to about this, as an example? Yes?
For impacted, what do you mean by that?
Whatever it means for them. Whatever it means for them. So it could mean, well, our program now intersects with the CRM rollout. Our program now intersects with the change management office. Our program now intersects and means it's got to be evaluated by HR. There's a whole bunch of other impacts we need to think about at this level. We don't want them discovering that along the way after we've walked out of the clicking meeting. We want them to become conscious of it. Because, as Rachel would say, you become a buyer's guide and help them through that journey. Thank you for the question. How is ROI calculated on projects like this? If there was only one question I'd write out of my presentation today, it would be this one. If there was only one question you had to ask, it would be this one. If I had to write a book that wasn't about deep listening, it would be about this one. Now, return on investment, or ROI, is simply, if I'm going to spend $30,000, how can I talk to finance about the return? If you don't know how to do this, there is an ex-finance professional in this room who did this for a living. See Alana at the break, and she can help you unpack the mindset of a CFO. Because that's all she does, is coach these people. Now, my dirty little secret, I started life off as an audit clerk in an accounting firm. Oh, Christ. But I have dyscalculus, which means I transpose all my numbers, so my audit career lasted all of 3 months. So I have a really good financial planner and a really good bookkeeper now. Okay, coming home. What other projects overlap with this? When we get into bigger programs, this is really going to be some interesting sequencing work for you guys to do. How else will this project be evaluated against the other project? And then finally, how will we notice the impact externally? So if I'm in a government department, I always ask, what will the minister say about this project? What will the voters say? What will the stakeholders say? The next slide's the one you want to take a photo of, because I've got it all up in like this. It must be giving value if you're all taking photos. And I'll post it on Central as well. These questions help you reduce the friction of buying for the person you're selling to. That is always the next sale you never listen to, because you're so busy not being in service of them, because all you're trying to do is solve the organisation's problem. One of the problems you have to solve as a selling thought leader is how do you help them sell, which is your process leadership that you have to do in that meeting. Please do not ask all these questions in one meeting. You'll blow up your sale. In fact, I would say just pick one question from whatever row is relevant to you and no more than that to practice on. Speak to your mentor about whether these questions are relevant for where you are at your belt. So, what I'd love you to do is just to vote and tell me what one thing is that's different for you as a result of this presentation. It's the same number, it's the same URL. Hopefully it should let you get to vote on the next line. Last question, next question. Close off the poll, Oscar. Okay. Should be right now. My apologies. For bonus points, once you finish voting, if you want to proactively listen to your customers and your prospects and you want a little warmer discussion to have, if you want a little warmer discussion to have, welcome to my favourite listening tool, Google Alerts. If you don't know this, this transformed the way I have clicking conversations. It's the way I have got more work out of existing customers by just going more across their organisation, because I punched in the names of people, first name, last name of either a prospect or a person I work with. So if you become a client of mine, my procedures manual says they get put into Google Alerts. In fact, if I've referred anyone in this room, you're in Google Alerts as well, because I'm tracking you, so I make sure I can point your great work to people I work with as well. And what it comes up with, it will send you an email either instantly, daily or weekly, depending on the way you set it up, and it will tell you all about it. So these are people I'm tracking right now for my clusters, and Google sends me an alert. So if I was you, based on your belt, I'd be adding 3 prospect names in straight away, now, in the next 30 minutes, now. If you're at those next belts there, green, blue or red, existing customer names, and then if you're up in the belts that are blue, red and black, it's about leveraging your influencer network. So, you know, if you pop Seth Godin in there, it's going to tell you not only the fact he published a blog, but where he got interviewed and where he got podcasted, etc., etc. So make sure that the one thing that you can go do is have a warm conversation, because what happens is I get an email in my inbox. So Cliff Rosenberg was quoted in the AFR talking about Afterpay, and I send Cliff a text that says, "Hey Cliff, great article in the AFR." He says, "Oscar, isn't it time we caught up for coffee?" Yes, Cliff. Easy. Deep listening. Impact beyond words. If you want to sign up for the 90-day listening challenge, you can go here. Go and do your work. Thank you, people. Am I taking questions, Pete? 4 minutes. Doug.
Just wondering what your take is on sort of digital interaction for polling and stuff, because we need to do it and the world needs to shift, but I noticed a phenomenon at conference where the human dynamic gets lost, like people don't reconnect and go, who asked that question? They just sit there and read off screen, and the questions keep coming and people feel the need to answer all of them. It's just a real shift. I wonder what your take was.
Yeah, so I'll repeat the question is, how do you use that polling slide for the dynamic? That's a great question. I'd ask someone who's an expert in speakership, to be honest. I use it really sparingly. So for example, I delivered that last week to a bunch of consultants, and over a 2-hour workshop, there were 3 questions. And as I was walked out of the room by the director of the division, she said to me, "Oscar, I don't know how you did that, but they were not on their phones for any other time than the time you asked them to. They were not on their laptops." And this is an organisation that's totally digital. That's all they do, that's all they sell, that's all they do every day. And I went, okay, I said, "Jen, I think I just made it their content and not mine." That's...
And it sounds like part of it was you broke it up and
Yeah.
used it rather than just shove it all at the
Yep, just before the break, just before the break, just before the break. Human mind's got 12 to 15 minutes where they can stay connected with you, then change the modality. That's how I've been taught to do it. Yeah. All right. One more.
I just wanted to reinforce what you said. So I run procurement departments, and it's absolutely true. Most people in the organisation have no idea about the process for getting vendors registered. So I'm just, I mean, I'm a white belt, so the 40% of other white belts in the room know that. And so that's such a valuable question if they just clear.
Okay, so I'll just play it back over the mic. So the point being, please make sure you ask the question about how do you get yourself registered as a vendor if you're brand new to the organisation, because it's a buying obstacle otherwise. And they don't know that. it's not their money, it magically happens. They don't even know if you don't get paid, right? So just sort it. Ask that question as close to the time where you've shown enough value to do that. Awesome sessions for the rest of the day. Thank you very much.
York City in the daytime. I like New York City in the nighttime. You say you like sleeping with the air off. I don't, I need it on. You like the light coming through the windows. I sleep late, so I just keep them all closed. You ignore the music on the radio. I don't, I sing along. I don't ask for you to change, baby, no, no, no. And you don't ask for me to change. Tell me how we're not alike, but we work so well, and we don't even know why. Funny how the stars cross right, cause we work so well, and we don't even know why. You can call it fire and ice, but we work so well, and we don't even know why. We don't even know why, no, no, we don't even know why, no, 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 no. Time, no, no, cold outside and you're just in a t-shirt. I have cold blood even in the sweater. You start your night sipping by the kilo. I don't, I know you know. I don't ask for you to change, baby, no, no, no. And you don't ask for me to change. Tell me how we're not alike, but we work so well, and we don't even know why. Funny how the stars cross right, cause we work so well, and we don't even know why. You can call it fire and ice, but we work so well, and we don't even know why. We don't even know why, no, no, we don't even know why, no, 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 no. We don't even know. We don't even know. We don't even know. Somehow we end up on the same side, and you wouldn't think that we'd be alright. Even our eyes are different colors, but we see fine. Somehow we end up on the same side, and you wouldn't think that we'd be alright. Even our eyes are different colors, but we see fine. Tell me how we're not alike, but we work so well, and we don't even know why. Funny how the stars cross right, cause we work so well, and we don't even know why. You can call it fire and ice, cause we work so well, and we don't even know why. We don't even know why, no, no, we don't even know why, no, 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 no. Nighttime. woke up with a fear this morning, but I can taste you on the tip of my tongue. Alarm without no warning. You're by my side and we've got smoke in our lungs. Last night we were way up, kissing in the back of the cab. And then you say, love, baby, let's go back to my flat. And when we wake up, never had a feeling like that. I got a reason, so man, put that record on again. I don't wanna hear sad songs anymore. I only wanna hear love songs. I found my heart up in this place tonight. Don't wanna sing mad songs anymore. Only wanna sing your song. 'Cause your songs got me feeling like I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love. Yeah, you know, your songs got me feeling like no fear, but I think I'm falling. I'm not proud, but I'm usually the type of girl that would hit and run. No risk, so I think I'm all in. When I kiss your lips through my heartbeat thump. And now we're way up, dancing on the roof of the house. And then we make love right there on your best friend's couch. And then you say, love, this is what it's all about. So keep on kissing my mouth and put that record on again. I don't wanna hear sad songs anymore. I only wanna hear love songs. I found my heart up in this place tonight. Don't wanna sing mad songs anymore. Only wanna sing your song. 'Cause your songs got me feeling like I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love. I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love. I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love. Yeah, you know, your songs got me feeling like I don't wanna hear sad songs anymore. I only wanna hear love songs. I found my heart up in this place tonight. I don't wanna sing mad songs anymore. I only wanna sing your song. 'Cause your songs got me feeling like I don't wanna hear sad songs anymore. I only wanna hear love songs. I found my heart up in this place tonight. I don't wanna sing mad songs anymore. Only wanna sing your song. 'Cause your songs got me feeling like I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love. I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love. I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love. Yeah, you know, your songs got me feeling like
I've been stuck in motion, moving too fast, trying to catch a moment, but it slips through my hands. All I see are long days and dark nights. I'm lost without you, but I'm on my way, so hold tight. I'm coming home tonight. Meet me in the valley where the kids collide into the morning. Oh my God, my town is coming alive. I'm coming home tonight. I know you're ready for the sparks to fly into the morning. Oh my God, my town is coming alive. 'Cause I'm coming home to. Yes, I'm coming home to. Don't wanna spend my whole life catching my breath. 'Cause I've been running round and round and round, and I got nothing left. There's nothing like a sunset skyline to let you know you're almost home. So breathe in and hold tight. I'm coming home tonight. Meet me in the valley where the kids collide into the morning. Oh my God, my town is coming alive. I'm coming home tonight. I know you're ready for the spark
finesse on myself. Pick up, dust them off, put them back up on the shelf. Kiss my little baby girl isn't me. Am I coming out of left field? Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. I've been feeling it since 1966 now. Might be over now, but I feel it still. Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. Let me kick it like it's 1986 now. Might be over now, but I feel it still. Got another mouth to feed. Leave it with the babysitter, mama call the grave digger. Gone with the fallen leaves. Am I coming out of left field? Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. I've been feeling it since 1966 now. Might have had your fill, but I feel it still. Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. Let me kick it like it's 1986 now. Might be over now, feel it still. We could fight a war for peace. Give in to that easy living, goodbye to my hopes and dreams. Stop flipping for my enemies. Or we could wait until the walls come down. It's time to give a little to the kids in the middle. Oh, till it falls, won't bother me. Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks. Yeah, your love is an abyss for my heart to eclipse now. Might be over now, but I feel it still. Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. I've been feeling it since 1966 now. Might be over now, but I feel it still. Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. Let me kick it like it's 1986 now. Might be over now, but I feel it still. Might have had your fill, but I feel it still.
Where should we run to? We got the world in our hands and we're ready to play. They say we're wasted, but how can we waste it if we're loving every day? Okay, I got the keys to the universe, so stay with me. Cause I got the keys, babe. Don't wanna wake up one day wishing that we'd done more. I wanna live fast and never look back. It's what we're here for. Don't wanna wake up one day wondering where did it all go. Cause we'll be home before we know. I wanna hear you sing it. Hey mama, don't stress your mind. We ain't coming home tonight. Hey mom, we're gonna be alright. Dry those eyes. We'll be back in the morning when the sun starts to rise. So mama, don't stress your mind. So mama, don't stress your mind. We ain't coming home tonight. We ain't coming home tonight. Where should we run to? We got a ticket that takes us wherever we like. We got our problems, but just for the minute, let's push all our troubles aside. Alright, cause we got the keys to the universe inside our minds. Yeah, we got the keys, baby. Don't wanna wake up one day wishing that we'd done more. I wanna live fast, never look back. It's what we're here for. Don't wanna wake up one day wondering where did it all go. Cause we'll be home before we know. I wanna hear you sing it. Hey mama, don't stress your mind. We ain't coming home tonight. Hey mom, we're gonna be alright. Dry those eyes. We'll be back in the morning when the sun starts to rise. So mama, don't stress your mind. So mama, don't stress your mind. Don't stress your mind. Hey mama, don't stress your mind. We ain't coming home tonight. Hey mom, we're gonna be alright. Dry those eyes. We'll be back
Sweet divine, the heavy truth, water or wine, don't make me choose. I wanna feel the way that we did that summer night. Drunk on a feeling alone with the stars in the sky. I've been running through the jungle, I've been running with the wolves to get to you, to get to you. I've been down the darkest alley, saw the dark side of the moon to get to you, to get to you. I looked for love and every stranger took too much easy anger, all for you, yeah, all for you. I've been running through the jungle, I've been crying with the wolves to get to you, to get to you, to get to you. Your fingertips trace my skin to places I have never been. Blindly I am following. Break down these walls and come on in. I wanna feel the way that we did that summer night. Drunk on a feeling alone with the stars in the sky. I've been running through the jungle, I've been running with the wolves to get to you, to get to you. I've been down the darkest alley, saw the dark side of the moon to get to you, to get to you. I looked for love and every stranger took too much easy anger, all for you, yeah, all for you. I've been running through the jungle, I've been crying with the wolves to get to you, to get to you, to get to you. Running through the jungle, I've been running with the wolves to get to you, to get to you. I've been down the darkest alley, saw the dark side of the moon to get to you, to get to you. I looked for love and every stranger took too much.
Great start. Good morning. Happy Saturday, everybody. Anyone dusty? Yep, awesome. Welcome to my world. But I am still here and I'm going to give you as much value as possible. So I've got 20 minutes to give you tips on how to write your book faster and easier. You are still going to have to do work, but I promise you you're going to do less work than what you might have been doing in the past. And you're actually going to make money not from book sales, but from the process of writing properly. You up for that? Cool. So I'm going to go through one of the things that when I looked at the curriculum in the early days, it was like, how the hell does this stuff all stick together? Like, how do I make sense of it? And I'm the kind of person that if there's a way to hack the system and do it as easy and quickly as possible, I will always find it. But what I've done in that process is completely honour the curriculum at the same time. So I'm going to teach you guys how to do the same. This book, first one, actually took me 8 days. Do you believe me? It's 55,000 words. And they're actually pretty cool. Like, it's actually a bestseller, just so you know. So I'm going to show you how to do it in 8 days. Do you believe me? I wouldn't, but anyway. Okay, so I'm going to give you the tips and I'm going to go through them quickly. I'm not going to teach you the curriculum, I'm just going to tell you how to use the curriculum. Number one, we've been through this experience yesterday, right? So your book starts from your green sheet, and your green sheet kind of has two options for writing a book. It might be a cluster book. And the cluster book is what we do when we come here. We go to launch a cluster every 3 months. So it might be a particular cluster that you go, yeah, this is one of my things that I want to be known for. So I'm going to write a green sheet that I absolutely love. Or your other option for a book might be a positioning book where you want to say, it might be a big word and you capture a number of your clusters and you want to be known for something. That still requires a green sheet in order for you to write a book. Okay, you can ask me questions at the end. But typically, most people write cluster books. Next is you write a white paper. So you've got your green sheet, you're in love with your green sheet, and a lot of people say to me all the time, Georgia, what do I put in my white paper? What you put in your white paper is not 10 top tips on how to be a great communicator, for example, because that's okay, but it's not as impressive. This is the cheat version. It's not cheating. Actually, this is a really cool version of how I write my green sheets. Thanks, Cam. Can you stick this up for me? So, this is my green sheet, right? And what I've done here is I've just put the numbers in order of how I actually write a white paper, because I use it all from my green sheet. And the reason I've put numbers on there is because each number on that green sheet for me represents a pink sheet. So I talk about this a lot. I pink sheet my green sheet, which basically means that when I look at, for example, if I start talking about a known spoken problem, I will get my pink sheet and write the problem at the top, in the middle, then I'll explain what that problem is, and then I'll have a story around that problem, and then I'll have the data to prove that that's a problem, and then I'll have a metaphor to explain it, but I don't need a model at this stage, because I'm just talking about this bit. Cool? That's how I deepen my green sheet so that I can actually have really cool sales conversations as well. But it's actually a really cool way for me to stretch out my thinking and produce typically the first third of my book. Because I've written my white paper, which I'm now using to either send to potential clients before I've met them or somebody after I've had a meeting to show my credibility, because I didn't have this in the first place. But I'm also at the same time leaving them with another book in this space, which one of my favourites was Fierce Conversations. So, like, I don't have to have a book to have credibility, but I've got a white paper, and it shows them that I know their world and what goes on for them and their problems and how to solve them. Oh, sorry. Good point, Dan. Thank you. It's good to know someone's watching. Yeah. So, we're on that. Can we go back to the prezzo? So, we've written our white paper. Oh, the next step is, at the bottom of your green sheet, the bottom right-hand side is unspoken. And a lot of people say to me, what's your unspoken? Or your unknown, sorry. What's your unknown? Your unknown is your high-level pink sheet. It's basically saying the reason it's unknown is you, Mr. Client or Mrs. Client, don't actually know the solution to your problem, and it's this. So what I do is I absolutely fall in love with my pink sheet, and that's called my ACE pink sheet, because that's the high-level solution that I've got to the green sheet. And, you know, if you make it really simple, it's a Venn diagram. So I've got to fall in love with that. I've got to play with that. I've got to extract that. And I'm not teaching you how to do that. But this is one of the other things that you do. And then what I get from my ACE pink sheet, right, is potentially 52 pink sheets from that, or 100 pink sheets, because I start diving down further on my high-level pink sheet. So I'm starting to get all, it's actually working for me now because I'm seeing the point of this pink shading process because it's deepening my thinking about all the components of my solution or my program or my mentoring session or whatever it may be. And so my thinking is getting deeper. But what I'm doing with that is I'm now blogging every single week based on my pink sheets that are based on my cluster, that have come from a white paper. And now I'm getting my message out there to the market all the time that I'm an expert in this space. Watch this space, you know, at the end of my blogs I might have, you know, I'd love to send you my white paper or click here to download my white paper. So I'm starting to get a whole lot of written IP at the same time I'm marketing, the same time I'm positioning, and now I'm starting to get people calling me because I'm blogging and I've become the squeaky wheel. People constantly are expecting to get blogs from me. The reason I've got these guys up here is that they blog every single week. I see it. And I'm not saying that, you know, I know there's many of us else in the room, but if you're not blogging every week, you are missing so many opportunities. It is such a great marketing tool, but what it does is you're starting to write your book. You've got all this stuff now that you basically, from your pink sheets, you're actually getting and turning into words. So your book's starting to evolve, so is your business, so is your thinking, and so are your sales. And the longer you've been in it, the more you'll get the experiences like I'm having now, where somebody goes, oh, I've been reading your blogs for 2.5 years now, and I've now finally got the funding to run a program for 12 months. Seriously, that happens. I'm like, what the f-? And you just never know who's listening. So I have deep respect for people who have the rigour every week to blog, because it's one pink sheet. It's all it is. So now I'm starting to get 52 to 100, 52 to like 101 pink sheets from one cluster. And I've got them everywhere. They're like all over the shop. So literally what I do, because I've made the decision I still want to do my book, is I put them, you can do them any way you like, whether you put titles on little sticky notes or whether you have your pink sheets everywhere on the ground and you start going, oh, that's a theme. There's self-awareness over there, and here's a theme of tools and techniques, and here's a theme for actually understanding others, and here's a theme for collaboration. Wow, I can see all those themes and they make logical sense because they're coming from your ace pink sheet. Maybe they're my chapters. So you're starting to get some process around the work that you've been doing and what to start doing with it. And then you realise you've got some gaps. Because you might have, 10 to 15 chapters, you might have 5 to 15. No, you never have 5. Well, if it's a small book, you would. But we're talking about, at the moment, I'm talking about making the big cluster books of 50,000 words once easy. So you realise you've got some gaps. So you start to write some more pink sheets about, oh, I've got this chapter on discovering me, but I realise I haven't got a component about understanding my connection to others. So I'm going to write a pink sheet on that. Or I've got this, I can see the sequence of this, but now I realise that we're actually missing a whole chapter on how to get myself centred before I start these things. So, okay, I'll start writing a pink sheet about that, and all of a sudden now I've got 12 pink sheets underneath that one because I'm coming up with so many brilliant ideas. I've got pink sheets coming out everywhere. Now, because I've been doing this for about 6 months by this stage, so if I've been writing a blog every week for 6 months, how many blogs have I got? Thank you. I couldn't be bothered to work it out. But you've got a lot now, and you've got a lot of content. So you've got your green sheet, which could be a third of your book, and now you've got 36 pink sheets. You're actually nearly at the stage where your book could be written. It couldn't, because you're going to realise there's going to be other stuff that you want to put in there. So you're literally getting yourself sorted to go, okay, here's my green sheet and the first component of my book. Here's my other pink sheets, and I'm just going to cut and paste my blogs in there. So it's not cheating because you've done the work. You've done the thinking. So you start putting it all together in some kind of sequence, but what you'll see is that depending upon your style of how you write blogs, some of them might be shorter and you might need to lengthen them for your book, or some of them might be too long and you might need to shorten them. So there's just some logic around how you go about doing that. And then you get really clever about what works for you as far as how you write. The reason this took me 8 days is that I literally took myself off to Bali, tax deduction, and I brought all my cut and pasted stuff in a Word doc, and then all the other pink sheets that I needed to add to my book, and I literally did it in 8 days. I also did yoga every day. I also bought quite a few things. I also met quite a few people, but every day I had a system that worked for me, which was wake up, work for an hour and a half, can't think anymore, go do yoga, come back, have breakfast, work for an hour and a half, can't think anymore, go for a shop, find a cafe, work for an hour and a half, go and meet someone. Not really, I was quite lonely, but that was the process that worked for me. But you don't need to go away to do it. I also, when I was writing my blogs all the time, it was the train from home to getting to the client. I would write a blog sitting there on my computer. It was literally in reception waiting for a client, because they love making you wait. That's a whole nother story. You know, I'd be finishing a blog just before they come in. Like all the moments, because I just got into the flow of using all the little moments in my life in order to get this stuff done. So I didn't make it such a big deal. So you've got to work out where you get your best energy from, whether you need to stare at nature, or whether you're happy in your home office, or whether you like to do it in bite-sized chunks, or whether you're a day, 3 days, 4 days at a time. You've got to work out what works for you. For me, I need white noise. I need noise in the background. I don't want to talk to anybody, but I need that. So I need stimulus. And then I do spurts, and then I stop. Spurts, and then I stop. And that's actually how I wrote really quickly. But that's what works for me. So you've got to ask yourself the question, what works for you? And then seriously, you do a happy dance, because you've actually pulled together a book. You've pink sheeted. I'll get back, because everyone's just going to focus on that and not me. But so that's actually how I've simplified the whole process, but I've honoured the system and done everything that the curriculum tells me to do, but it's also made me market, and it's actually made the writing easier, because when I went away, I already had about 40,000 words, because I just cut and pasted them. I'm not going to teach you the process of writing the books and stuff. There's lots of stuff on Central that I'll find for you and post there around how to do that. But it's just a really simple way of doing it and not making it into a massive deal. Okay, so what I want you to do for the next 3 minutes, and Cam's going to put some music on, is in your groups, I want you to come up with some questions, things that you still need to understand about the process that you want to ask me while you've still got me here. And at the end of that 3 minutes, I'm going to ask you to pick what's the best question on the table that's going to serve the room. Okay, so 3 minutes to ask the questions in your groups, and then pick the best one.
She said, call me now, baby, and I'd come up running. If you'd call me now, baby, I'd come up running.
Okay. I want you to point to the person on the table who's got the best question. Point to the person on the table who's got the best question, who's going to serve the room really well. And now it's first in, best dressed. Who's asking a question? Great, okay.
When and how did you pick the title? Because I was seeing a title as a guiding light, but maybe it isn't.
So everyone will have a different answer for this, and it is kind of up to you. If you pick the title and it guides your light, do that, you know. And I think it's kind of a good thing to do, but not being too attached to it either, because the more you write, the more it could morph and change too. So very rarely have I ever seen someone pick a title from the beginning and keep it at the end. So don't let the title stop you, but if getting a title serves you, do that as well. So if you go through a formal publishing process, they'll pick your title. Yeah, it's a whole experience. You know, but if you write your own, you can put it in your own words and, you know, those sort of, you know, say yes and no. Wait, I'm not ready, Matt. My first title was Fixing Feedback. Yeah, and I hated the word feedback. So, but the market understood it and loved it, and Peter Cook and Matt Church told me to get over myself because that's the word that the market wants to buy. So I did. Yeah, and then the next title of the book is Feedback Flow. It's still in there again, but, you know, I'm a black belt, so I'm not really whinging. Dave.
First of all, awesome presentation. So I did the pink sheet sprint, and the thing that I learned out of that is I wasn't in love with the green sheet, so I just wrote pink sheets all over the place as opposed to something that could turn into a book. So this immersion's just a year too late for me to do that learning, but now I'm going to write an amazing book. Our question is, you described beautifully how you do it, but it felt like quite a solo thing. But pink sheets, you obviously in blogs, you have that audience interaction. Can you just tell us how that learning kind of shapes your book?
So can you explain to me the audience interaction?
So like a pink sheet, are you using that with clients, and when you're doing blogs, are you getting comments back, and does that shape your book?
Yeah.
Or?
It's feedback. You know.
Yeah, am I getting feedback? No, I don't ask for that, I just give it. I am but I'm not relying on them, because when you start trusting the pink sheet process, you get such depth of thinking. You're always going to have someone that argues with your point if you're a thought leader. So that's actually good news. So that's, you know, oh, well, I don't necessarily agree with that. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But I'm going to stand in my space, and this is what I know to be true. And where I find out the content that resonates or not is actually from the programs that I run. But also, this book here, which was published 2 years ago, I don't use all this content anymore. I've got much better content. Like, I'm not embarrassed of it, but it's not my best work, because my pink sheets keep going and the evolution of thinking keeps going. So some of this stuff is kind of not right anymore in my world, but it was right then. So I'm not wedded to what they say, actually. So, because I know what I'm standing in, and that's what I believe about. But that's what I believe, yep.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks, Georgia. We were just having a chat about the way you set out the green sheet, and then that became the start of where you started with your book, which was a bit of a light bulb in itself. But then with the pink sheets, how specifically are you turning pink sheets into writing? Is there a formula or a order that you're doing that in?
The short version is everything that's on my pink sheets is in a blog most of the time. So whether I start with a story, which is, whether a story, or whether I start with some data or a case study, or whether I start with a statement, my brand and personality, this might be a bit of a surprise, just likes to shock, people so that they read stuff. So I start with ridiculous statements that people, yeah, we're laughing because it is me. But that works for me. Work out what works for you, but as long as you get all the content out. So, and you just play with that. So sometimes, if it's RAL, in the room, she'd say, start with a story. Is she wrong? No. Is she right? Yes. No. Like yes and no. Just get the content out. Yep.
All right. I don't need to stand up, but all right, okay. I'm always interested, because you get all that content together, do you have any say in the way it's produced, as in which diagrams and how many words, or does the publisher have a lot of influence on that? Because there's a lot of great books and they all look different.
Yeah. I would suggest for everybody writing a book that you get an editor. So there's different types of editors that you can get, but do not put a book out there without getting an editor, because this is your brand and it's a bit like your first date. So they're not going to read it as deeply as you think they do. They're not even going to remember the content as much as you do. Like what does Matt call that? Mental masturbation, you know, where you're completely loving your own stuff, you know, but an editor really helps you. So I put it in an order, and then the editor helped me sort it out and go, Georgia, that chapter should be there. I don't know what that content is about. What were you thinking there? I was like, I don't know. I just wanted to write more words. So, you know, but then you can do that at the end, or you can do it at the start. I would suggest an editor at the start now, because the first time I did it at the end, it was the wrong way to go about doing it. So we kind of laid out the chapters and the flow of it, and then the editor came back and said, I think there's a better way to flow this, and not being completely wedded to green sheet plus pink sheets. Like, it's okay if you kind of deviate from that. You know, that was just where I started, so I felt comfortable to, go.
On the point of editor, TLBS specific, we already kind of agree with that, but content specific, so do you get an editor that's around your market or your message, or does it not matter?
I get an editor that I like working with, that gets me and my brand, because I just want my brand to come out in the book and my words, because we'll all have different ways of writing, and don't try and write like I do. I won't try and write like you do, because I can't. Just be you, unless of course you're really wrong, and then be someone else. But yeah, so for it's not an editor they're an expert at writing books. That's their expertise. They're not an expert in our space or in our markets. Yeah. And again, I'm giving you this advice saying it is so, but when you get faculty up here, we're all absolutely wedded to the curriculum. We know it, we love it, we breathe it, we eat it, but we also say things very assertively, and sometimes that might not jar with you, it might not sit well with you, so sometimes it's a bit like parenting, like pick the advice that works for you, but I'll give you curriculum advice, but I'll also tell you what worked for me at the same time. There was a hand up here.
Thank you. We centred our discussion around you said blog on your pink sheets, and yet we've heard blog on your green sheets, and free is green and paid is pink. So is it, are you blogging on the pink sheets of your green sheet, or like what's...
Yeah, so I've completely confused the hell out of you basically, haven't I? So, and I'm good with that. So let me just jump back to this green sheet thing that I talked about, pink sheeting your green sheet. Thanks, Cam. So the reason I think this was just a Georgia Murch thing that I made up that has really worked for me, is the reason that I started pink sheeting my green sheet was another way of thinking about pink sheets is think sheets. They're just a way to help deepen my thinking and to get credibility around the message that I'm trying to get out there. So it's left brain, right brain. Someone wants a story and a picture, another one wants data and evidence to prove it, and the pink sheets help me do that. So what they basically did is allowed me to go deeper into how I think about my green sheet. And then what I would start doing when I start blogging about my new cluster is I would literally, this would be a blog. The problem, it's not a great look, is it? It's meant to be a cape, like a superpower. So I would literally blog about, one of the biggest issues at the moment is that we're all not talking to each other and we're living in silos. So make that statement, and then that becomes a pink sheet. And then my white sheet paper's starting to come to life because I'm just actually blogging about it and using it, and then I cut and paste it and turn it into a white paper about 2 months later. I do it much faster than that because I've got to get my white paper out, but yeah. Is that helpful? Good.
Is Oscar in the room? Oscar put in Central a really great resource where he PDF'd all of the links to things that have been written about writing books. So I'll repost it. So watch Central. Watch Central.
Okay, I think we have one more question. I'm going to do two. But the music will go on and we'll just ignore that.
Thanks, Georgia. The economics of printing and or selling books, should you be thinking of this as a business card so you keep it cheap and the number of pages down, or should you be aiming for a bestseller and you go for the hardcover? Where do you go on the economics?
Just do your best work. Just do your best work. So do what sits well with you. Don't get too obsessed. Just do what feels right. I'm going to give you the short answer because I think we get too obsessed about all the semantics of, oh, is this going to be the biggest in the bet? You don't know. It's like when you write a song. Is it going to be the best one? It's like when you go on the first date. Is this going to go for a bit longer? Like, you just don't know. Just do your best work. Put your lippy on and write.
Physical size of the book, quality of paper, weight, all that, does it really matter? Should you obsess over it?
Oh. Again, this is your business card on steroids. Your book is your business cards on steroids. So when you're sort of white to yellow belt, it's really expensive. So just write a book, get it out. I actually think the covers make a really big difference. I get embarrassed for thought leaders that have crappy covers. I have to tell you, I get embarrassed. I'm like, oh, I don't even care if the content's good. I won't refer that book. So make it look cool and schmick and expensive. Like, it's really important. And I think people are sick of heavy text these days, but that's my market. So if I was in academia, it could be very different. My next book, this one, is got, hang on a tick, pictures and short words and all that sort of stuff, because what I'm learning in my market, I'm not supposed to use that. What I'm learning in my market now is that people don't want lots of text, and half of my market don't read. So I wanted to make something that they read, and this is expensive. But I'm at black belt, I can do it expensive. And it's positioning. I'm not doing this to make money, but this absolutely worked, and it wasn't that amazing quality, but it looks awesome. So, I'm not black and white on it, but don't make it look crappy, because that's your message. And now here, I am over. It's been a pleasure. I'll hang around.
Sometimes I feel like throw my hands up in the air. I know I can count on you. Sometimes I feel like saying, Lord, I just don't care. But you've got the love I need to see me through. Sometimes it seems the going is just too rough, and things go wrong no matter what I do. Now and then it seems like the life is just too much, but you got the love I need to see me through. When food is gone, you are my daily need. Oh, when friends are gone, I know my Savior's love is real. You know it's real. You got the love. 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 Time after time, I think, oh Lord, what's the use? Time after time, I think it's just no good. 'Cause sooner or later in life, the things you love, you lose. But you've got the love I need to see me through.
I'm so gone. Anyone could see that I'm wasted. You cut through, and I just wanna know what's in your head. Write it on a piece of paper, honey. Put it in my coat before I go. Hidden in a place you know I'll find it. Oh, later when I'm sitting all alone. Let me in. Everything starts at your skin. So your love's always finding me out. Who am I kidding? If all my defenses come down, oh baby, will you lay it all on me now? Lay it all on me now. Lay it all on me now. Lay it all on me now. Snow comes down. Everything is new, different. I found you, hidden in plain sight. Why'd it take so long? Write it on a piece of paper, honey. Put it in my coat before I go. Let me in. Everything starts at your skin. So new. Your love's always finding me out. Who am I kidding? If all my defenses come down, oh baby, will you lay it all on me now? Lay it all on me now. 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 Love's always finding me out. Who am I kidding? For my defenses come down. Oh, baby, baby, will you lay it all on me now? Lay it all on me now. Lay it all on me now. Lay it all on me now. Lay it all on me now.
You know I'm bad at communication. It's the hardest thing for me to do, and it's said it's the most important part that relationships will go through. And I give it all away just so I could say that. But I know that you're gonna be okay anyway. You know there's no rhyme or reason for the way it turned out to be. I didn't go and try to change my mind, not intentionally. I know it's hard to hear me say it, but I can't bear to stay. And I just know that you're gonna be okay anyway. Always keep your heart locked tight. Don't let your mind read dial. Oh, but I just couldn't take it. I tried out and to beg it, but I fumbled. And when it came down to the wire, it felt bad. It felt right. But I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire, it felt right. It felt right.
gonna be okay anyway. Always keep your heart locked tight. Don't let your mind read that. Oh, but I just couldn't take it. I tried not to beg it, but I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire, it felt right. It felt right. Oh, but I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire, it felt right. It felt right. Oh, but I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire. Always keep your heart locked tight. Don't let your mind read that. Always keep your heart locked tight. Don't let your mind read that. Oh, but I just couldn't take it. I tried not to beg it, but I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire, but I just couldn't take it. I tried not to beg it, but I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire, it felt right. It felt right. Oh, but I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire, it felt right. It felt right. Oh, but I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire, it felt right. It felt right. Oh, but I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire, it felt right. Oh, but I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire. Yeah.
You gotta know I'm feeling love, made it gold. I never loved another one, another you. It's gotta be love, I said it. You gotta know I'm feeling love. You gotta know I'm feeling love. You gotta know I'm feeling love, made it gold. I'll never love another one, another you. It's gotta be love, I said it. I might as well be in our garden. I said a smell in the air is a dripping rose. You can be the one for me. I know the soul to be my warden. Of anything there that's made of gold. A physical kiss is nothing without it. And you close your eyes to see what it's done. The body that lies is built up on looking. It's all that remains before it's begun. You gotta know I'm feeling love, made it gold. I'll never love another one, another you. It's gotta be love, I said it. You gotta know I'm feeling love, made it gold. I'll never love another one, another you. It's gotta be love, I said it. A heart will swell before it's hardened. With the flick of the hair, it can make you old. Another hole to dig my soul in. that keeps me sold. A physical kiss is nothing without it. And you close your eyes to see what it's done. The body that lies is built up on looking. Is all that remains before it's begun. You gotta know I'm feeling love, made it go. I'll never love her. Another one, another you. It's gotta be love, I said it. You gotta know I'm feeling love, made it go. I'll never love her. Another one, another you. It's gotta be love, I said it. You gotta know I'm feeling love, made it go. I'll never love her. Another one, another you. It's gotta be love, I said it.
Roll up your sleeves and face to face, it's looking right back at me. It's easier to leave it, oh, it's easier to fake it, oh. So I go and I join the free. There's people there that just like me. Everything is gonna be alright. Everything is gonna be alright. Oh, they're hunting just gonna stand with my back hanging off my left arm. I'm just gonna walk home kicking stones at parked cars. But I had a great night, 'cause you kept rubbing against my arm. I'm just gonna stand with my back hanging off my left arm. Give me a drink, I get drunk, I fall sick just so I can adore you. Want the entire street out of town just so I can be alone with you. Now go when you're ready, my head's getting heavy, pressed against your arm. I adore you. All of my money is spent on these nights just so we can hang out. Squeezing in and out of these dresses, I wanna be found by you. Found by you. Give me a drink, I get drunk, I fall sick just so I can adore you. Want the entire street out of town just so I can be alone with you. Now go when you're ready, my head's getting heavy, pressed against your arm. I adore you. I adore you. I kick the gutter in tight shorts, basketball courts. Watch me watch him talk to girls. I'm known as a right-hand slugger. Anybody else wanna touch my lover? Give me a drink, I get drunk, I want sip just so I can adore you. I want the entire street out of town just so I can be alone with you. Now go when you're ready, my head's getting heavy, pressed against your arm. Just to adore you. I adore you.
Double D, big full breast on my baby. Triple weight, couldn't weigh the love I got for the girl. And I just wanna know why you ain't been going to work. Boss ain't working you like this. He can't take care of you like this. Now you're lost, lost in the heat of it all. Girl, you know you're lost, lost in the thrill of it all. Miami, Amsterdam, Tokyo, Spain, lost. Los Angeles, India, lost on a train, lost. Got on my buttercream silk shirt and it's Versace. Hand me my triple A so I could weigh the work I got on you, girl. No, I don't really wish, I don't wish the titties were sure. No, have I ever let you get caught? Lost, lost in the heat of it all. Girl, you know you're lost, lost in the thrill of it all. Miami, Amsterdam, Tokyo, Spain, lost. Los Angeles, India, lost. lost on a train, lost. She's at the stove. Can't believe I got her out here cooking dough. I promise she'll be whipping meals up for a family of her own someday. Nothing wrong, nothing wrong, nothing wrong with the lie. Nothing wrong with another short plane ride through the sky. You and I are lost, lost in the heat of it all. Girl, you know you're lost, lost in the thrill of it all. Miami, Amsterdam, Tokyo, Spain, lost. Los Angeles, India, lost on a train, lost.
Is the substance. Any other channel on the
So sentimental, not sentimental, no romantic, not disgusting yet. Darling, I'm down and lonely. When with a fortunate only, I've been looking for something else. Do let, juggle it, let's go slowly. Discouraged, distant from other interests. On your favorite weekend, and in this love for gentlemen only. That's with a fortunate only. No, I gotta be someone else. These days it comes, it's something else. Do let, juggle it, let's go slowly. Discouraged, distant from other interests. On your favorite weekend, and in this love for gentlemen only. That's with a fortunate only. No, I gotta be someone else. These days it comes, it comes and goes. A list of mania. Think less but see it grow. Like a ride, oh. Not easily offended. Not hard to let it go. From a mess to the masses. A list of mania. Think less but see it grow. Like a ride, oh. Not easily offended. Not hard to let it go. From a mess to the masses. Follow misguided, stand still. Discuss, discouraged. On this precious weekend, and in this love for gentlemen only. Wealthiest gentlemen only. But now that you're lonely, do let, juggle it, let's go slowly. Discouraged, we'll burn the pictures instead. When it's all over, we can barely discuss for 1 minute only. Not with a fortunate only. Thought it could have been something else. These days it comes and goes. A list of mania. Think less but see it grow. Like a ride, oh. Not easily offended. Not hard to let it go. From a mess to the masses. A list of mania. Think less but see it grow. Like a ride, oh. Not easily offended. Not hard to let it go. From a mess to the masses. This is showtime, this is showtime, this is showtime. This is showtime, this is showtime, this is showtime.
I've got a thing down here. That's not the right. Oh, there we go. It's what?
You don't get the freedom, you just get free.
No, there's more stuff supposed to be on there. We're having technical issues, all right, so just don't worry. There's been my weekend of technical issues. Just bear with me. No, there's just something, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant, pretty stuff that I really like, but it doesn't matter. Right, welcome to Models for Dummies. Before I start, I started off as a thought leader who could not do models. I had a massive mental block. I couldn't do models, and I would look at people's models and be like, I'm never going to be able to do that. And I was really messed up about it. And then I started mucking around with models and trying. And what happened was I was not doing any pink sheets because I didn't have a model to go in the top left. So I was like, my mentor, Paul Worth, kept saying to me, we haven't got any pink sheets. And I was like, no, I haven't got any model. And I didn't have any models, so I couldn't have any pink sheets. And it was just this constant nightmare that was bogging up all my IP. And I couldn't work it out. So then I thought, and I had this belief, Bob would say yesterday, a belief that I wasn't clever and I wasn't clever enough to do this stuff and I couldn't be a thought leader because I wasn't clever and these clever people could do these amazing models and Lisa clearly couldn't. And then I thought, hang on a minute, and so I started working on just stretching out my ideas visually. So what I realised, my greatest learning is that models aren't actually a destination, they're a journey. So when you look at models and you go, wow, and you can't imagine how that got created, and then you start going, I can't do that. But it's not about that. It's actually about the journey and the learning that you get while you're creating your model. So the stuff, the IP that falls out while you are making a model is phenomenal. And so I would take really simple problems. So for those of you who don't know much about what I do, I work in a public market. So my problems are generally women's problems. I was on a plane recently with a guy and he sat down next to me and he went, what do you do? And I said, because he sat down and he was he was very blokey. And then he went, what do you do? Because he didn't know what else to say to me. He had no communication skills whatsoever. And I said, I make women happy. And he went, how do you do that? I said, well, we've got an hour. He said, I'm really shit at it. I said, that's okay. So that's my thing. So I run public workshops in the past for women. I do boys. People often say, oh, do you do men? It's a strange question to ask someone over the phone, but I do men. So I do men. And so that's my public market. So what I wanted to show you today is just how simple it is. So, and we'll have some time to do this. You'll have the half hour so you can actually do this for yourself. But if you feel like you want to do it as we're going, feel completely free. Right, the clicker. My clicker's, yeah, there we go, right. So a really simple quadrant model, and I take two problems. So the two problems that my market, two of the problems, they've got a lot of problems, right, my market, they have a lot of problems. But the two biggest problems for this particular workshop that I was running is that they don't know who they are, so they're not sure, they have no idea who they are, and they're exhausted. So these are their known problems. These are the problems they're coming to me going, I don't know who I am anymore. I'm so exhausted. So they're the problems that they're coming to me with, right? So basically I put those on a two axes, right? Just cross them over. And basically I go, okay, so they don't know who they are because they're not sure who the authentic version of them is. So they're being a fake version of themselves. They're being an imposter in their own world. So basically the two ends of it are either authentic and fake, and then they're exhausted, so they've got no energy. So that's the next thing. So you take two problems and just whack them on an X and Y. That's really simple. Now this could be two problems of a company you're working with. It could be two problems of, you know, anything, right? So it's really, really user-friendly. So then I name people who I know with these problems. So these are real people. I'm at the top. You always put yourself, because if you are the expert, you must label yourself as being at the top, right? So I am helping these people because I have these things. And so the aim of any 4x4 is a 2x, so the quadrant is that you want to get everyone up and right? You've got to get them up and right. So models should have some form of movement And I remember when I was about my second immersion and Matt did this really amazing presentation on models and I cried the whole way through it because he was blowing air over it and inverting it and I was like, I don't even understand. And now I wish I could do that session because it was phenomenal, but I wasn't ready for it. So this is the session I wanted at the beginning, which is why I'm doing it today. So basically I'm up here because I rate myself as being good at this area. Now, so this woman down here, her problems are, she's fake, but she's got lots of energy, right? So I often, pain in the ass, like my palette's very basic. And then I've got this woman over here who's fake with low energy, which is really not a good place either. And then I've got this woman over here, it's my mother. Just by the by. So she's so authentic, but got so low energy, no one's hanging out with her. Right? So these are the problems and these are the people. So I find if I give them names, and it might be the people in the market that you're talking to, it might be the people that are going to be in the room, it might be in a public market, because what I find is I can actually go out into the world and find 100 Taras, I can find 100 Dianas and 100 Carols, and I've got 300 people at my event. Right? Because I know the description of those people. Now having the names actually keeps me from my head going off into a weird place and I overcomplicate it and I get out of control. So I have to so that's just a wee tip that I use to keep myself focused on who I'm trying to help. So who is it? Who have you met that you're trying to help? Who's the one person that if that was your market, you know that person? So you've met some CEO and this is his problems. And so, Gary goes down there and John goes up there. So do you see how it works across everything? So then in the middle, basically what you're doing is you're going to describe where they're at. You describe how they're feeling. So in the centre, so Carol, she's negative, she's boring, and she's stuck. This is my observation of she who knows everything. This is my observation of where she's at. So these are the issues that I'm seeing in her that I can help. Then Diana's judgmental, nasty, and she's a know-it-all. Right? So they're the issues that I can see in her that is stopping her from moving up and over. And then Tara is annoying, she's ego-based, and she's perfect. Like really annoying, she's perfect. There's nothing real about this woman at all because she's running around being a fake version of herself. So these are these are the symptoms basically of these people. So these are all problems that you might have like in a green sheet problem. So then, what are the solutions? So then I go, what does Carol need to stop being negative, boring, and stuck? Right? So Carol needs quality sleep, she needs quality food, sleep, high vibe people, and she needs some connection. So that's basically what I'm solving her problems to. And then, so down here, Diana needs perspective, she needs enthusiasm, she needs excitement, she needs fun. So this is where you go, what does this company need? They need communication, they need this, they need strategies, whatever it is that applies to your thought leadership. And then Tara needs some self-awareness. She probably needs some coaching or some personal development work, and she definitely needs to read to get out of her own way, so she might understand there's someone else in the world other than her. So so that's how and by actually focusing on that one person, I'm able to go kind of deep in their problems. So actually all of these people are a different green sheet, right? Because I've got different layers of people coming to a public event. So this is the finished model. Now when you look at this model, it's a butterfly, because that's what I do. But when you look, I can't do boring models, they freak me out. But then you've got to make it pretty. Right? That's the point. You're going to make it pretty. So when I create this model, people say to me, oh, that model's amazing. How did you do that? So it's not amazing. It's really simple. But do you see how by just building that up, and then what happens is models are an amazing tool, but they stretched out my thinking. So then I went, wow, I've got a green sheet on Tara. So you've got to take the names off. Right? That's the... I was talking Corey through this yesterday and he goes, do you leave the names on? I'm like, no, you've got to remember to take the names off, especially if your mother's in there, right? So, and when you're running a public workshop, it's not really helpful to know that Tara's in the room and I've got Tara written at the bottom of my model. But what happens is that by looking at this, you go, wow, that's really amazing. And I can take people through and go, so where are you feeling? And they go, oh no, that's definitely me. This is me and this is what I need. and this is me, and this is what I need. And then I'm like, okay, so if we can get you what you need, we can move you up and over, right? So what are the biggest issues for you? Are the biggest issues your authenticity, or the biggest issue, like where are you on those two lines? And then it's kind of got a little bit of a prescriptive element as well. So what I'd like you to do is to go through, can we have the next one, Cam? So this is all you have to do. This is all you have to do. And I mean, Venns are great, and I spend ages, but the problem with Venns is I end up in word salad, and I just spend 4.5 hours on synonym.com going, what amazing, and I get really excited about words, and it just goes crazy, and then I'm going, I want them all to have an S, and it's just really dumb, and I'm overthinking it. Whereas a simple model like this really works. So basically, what I'd like you to do right now is to think about 2 problems that your client or industry has. What are 2 problems? Just pick any client or any industry or any one of your clusters. If you're working on a cluster, what is the problem that you're solving? So what are 2 problems that they have? And they need to be quite different. You can't have 2 similar problems. You know, like if you've got low vibe, low energy, well, that's not going to work because it's got the same, right? So you need to think about just 2 problems. And then think about the name of those people. So it might not be a name, it might be engineers versus frontline staff, or you know, it might be different roles. It doesn't have to be individual names. But if you have met a CEO, if you work with CEOs and you know a CEO who has these problems, put his name down there, because it'll keep you focused on, oh, that's right, this is about Gary. It's about Gary. And it keeps you going, that's right, this model's for Gary. So put the 2 names, 4 names, sorry. You should have 4 names. So this was the basis of my book, Look or Just Be Happy. So basically my book, when I went back through all of the things that they needed, I wrote a chapter on every one of those, and that became a book. So that was the model for my book. Can you just go back to that butterfly thing? There we go. So basically when I went to write my book, Look or Just Be Happy, which is up here in the top right, I made sure that I covered in the book good food, sleep, high vibe people, connection, perspective, enthusiasm, excitement, fun, self-learning, personal development, reading, coaching. I made sure that they were all mentioned in the book, and that became the book of solutions for anyone who floats around with this butterfly. So that's just a simple. So then after you've done that, then name the unspoken problems that you can see. So that goes back to, yeah, so here, the negative, boring, stuck. Like what can you see that is their problem? You know, that they're not achieving, or that they're feeling like they're no good in their role. What is it that is happening for those people? So this is the problems that maybe you can see when you go into the organisation. Some of them could be known, but some of them could be unknown problems. And if you can get the unknown problems, because not many people come up to me and go, hi, I'm a nasty, know-it-all, judgmental cow. And I can help you. I can help you. No one does that, right? And so, but they go, I've got no energy, and I'm always faking it. Like I feel like everywhere I go, when I'm at school, I feel like I'm being really fake with the other mothers, and when I'm at work, I feel like I'm not really myself, and when I'm at home, I'm really bad with the kids because I'm not really being a good job of that. So I'm just not feeling authentic in who I am. So they're the bits in there. And then the next bit is to write the solutions to their problems. Now the solution up here should be your cluster. If you buy this, you will fix all your problems. So then when you show them this at an event, and because I do public events, I don't use models. I don't use them generally ever. But if I'm actually selling to a group, I could say to them, and sometimes I use it just in a newsletter. So I'll go, you know, because it looks really impressive when you do a newsletter, especially if it's on boring old LinkedIn. You have to have boring stuff on LinkedIn, right? That's a rule. But if you, so then I can put the model in, and they'll go, oh, and people will message me straight away and go, I just saw your blog, and I'm so that person when you're running that workshop, or can you come and speak to our female leadership team, or you know, whatever it is that is the big problem for them. So getting all those problems going on is really useful. So then you want to remove the names. Take out the names, right? Because they're not helpful and you don't want to leave that stuff lying around. So make sure you take the names off and then make it pretty. Make it pretty. Now there's so many amazing tools out there to make your models pretty. Corey and I were talking yesterday, and you can go, like, if you go on Canva, you can buy model templates for not much money. I bought one, and I can't even remember where I got it from, and it's got like something like 25 different models, all with just full of text and really cool pictures. This one I drew myself, because no one else does a butterfly model. But all really cool, like different veins, different flows, different, all kind of 4x4, really cool, like flowers. I've made a model that's a flower. Paul Worth was like, really? I was like, yeah, it's a flower. It's my flower model, my butterfly model, right? Just makes me happy. I've got a lipstick model. I've got a Russian doll model. My models, you know, but they work for my market. So it's about actually, and I have so much fun with this. So I was a graphic designer. I've done a lot of design work. So actually sitting and playing with fonts and colours blows my mind, and I waste far too much time on it. My business manager goes, I can do that for you. And I'm like, I know, but I want to. Like, it makes me really happy. And what happens is when I go to make it pretty, I get another layer. I do the same thing with my pink sheets. So I write a pink sheet just out on a piece of pink paper, and then I sit down and I turn it into a PDF, and I make it into a pretty pink sheet, and I get a whole nother layer of distinction by just rethinking it. And then I go, no, but that's really about that. Because it's like when Cole talks about it's that second edition of that pink sheet, and having two cracks at it. And people say, just get them up, they don't have to be perfect. I don't believe that's true. I think you should make them perfect, and everything should be pretty. I believe the world should be pretty. That's a strong belief for me. But I find that really useful. So when you're making your model pretty, you will get in some more stuff. You might go, actually, that's not the word I want, or that's not. And when you're talking to people, it evolves even more. But it means, for me, that was a whole outline for a book. Because I basically, and okay, so they're my chapters. Right? So I didn't write about personal development and coaching. I just talked about personal development, and I do a thing called a PhD, which is your personal happiness development. So that's the chapter is on your doing a PhD in you, which is how can we develop you to be happy, which sort of covers the whole reading, coaching, it's all of it. But it means that I've got some structure there for either a program or a book. Or so I turned that into an online course, I turned it into a workshop, and I turned it into a book. And it's all from one model. Now I got 56 pink sheets off this model. Because by the time you go through and write 2 or 3 pink sheets on every one of those scenarios, you know, like women who are negative are, blah, blah, blah. Women who are boring are, it's really easy. Phenomenal material in my market. And you know, you get clear and energetic by being, and that becomes a whole pink sheet. And then I've got over 50 pink sheets with this one model just plopped in the corner. And it's really easy to belt out loads of pink sheets because you've got the model. So do many of you get stuck with that and you don't have the model for your pink sheet? And so this just makes it so easy, because you know if you're a thought leader, you should know who you're selling to and what your solution is. And so it's very easy. So it just comes down to that simple thing. So that's that. So has anyone got any questions about that could be helpful or not? Because we've got half an hour now to spend time going deeper in that. And you can do that with every one of your green sheets. So any green sheet you've got, or any idea you've got, if you've got an idea that I might be able to help these people with this, just do this model first. So just do, these are the 2 problems I can solve. Who are the 4 people that this kind of, or the 3 people that I think actually represent those markets? And it might be that there are 3 completely different markets. It's the possibilities are endless with the simplicity of this. But what happens is you get really cool IP, and it just keeps developing, rather than just going, I just need to have an amazing model that looks great on a keynote. It's like the amazing model looks great on a keynote is just a byproduct of all the thinking you've done. Right? So it's really about just stretching out your thinking and making it visual and just drawing things. So I spend my whole life drawing these, Because as I say, I find Venns, I love Venns and I do quite a few of those as well, but I find I get really messed up with a Venn because I get too busy on trying to make all the words perfect and get the palette and trying to overlap, and then I'm creating shit. I'm just making shit up. Doesn't even make sense because it looks good and the words fit. You know, I'm like, I want that to be fabulous. What would I have to make those to be? And it just takes up too much time. But I find this is the quickest, easiest way to create something that's visual that you can use as a model on your pink sheets. So there you go. That's me. Easy. So I'm here. If anyone wants a hand, just yell out. But just, yeah, hello. Hang on, you need... Oh, you want a photo? You're saying get out of the way? Oh, me and my slide? I can't hear you. You just want a photo? Yes, please. Go for your lot. Oh, which one? Of this one? That one? Okay, so yeah, they're the 6 things that if you just do those 6 things, you will have an amazing model, right? Super easy. Just follow it. It's really simple. And don't overthink it, because half of you really clever people, see, I'm quite grateful I'm not super clever, so my head doesn't go to the places that some of your heads go. Yeah. Being shallow actually really works for me as a thought leader, because everything's simple and pretty. And it's actually so great. It really works for me on so many levels. So I think that's, you know, you've got to run with what your best qualities are, right? So just go with those 6 things. And if anyone wants a hand, I don't know, yell out, and I'm here. Hello. Do you want? Hang on. You've got to use this apparently because Cam told me, so that we can, because it's being filmed.
The unspoken problems are the 2 axes, basically. You've selected 2 unspoken problems, and they're the 2 axes.
No, the 2 spoken problems are the axis.
Oh, the 2 spoken
so
problems.
So the spoken problems
okay.
are that they've got no energy.
Right.
Right? That they've got no energy and they don't really know who they are.
Right.
So these women are coming to me.
Spoken problems.
They're spoken problems. So they're telling you, because you want them to look at it and go, oh, that's me.
Yeah.
If they're unknown to them, they may not register that they belong on the model.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. Perfect now.
Lisa, is this for the buyer? Oh, so you're public, so your buyer is the same as your audience. But I'm thinking if you're selling into a corporate, then the problems of the buyer are not necessarily the same as the problems of the consumer of the content.
Yeah, absolutely. But you could do, you would do a model. I do a model for whoever I'm talking to. So if I was taking this program into an organisation, which I have, so I took it into, I did this Look Gorgeous, Be Happy for 400 school teachers. So I took, basically, I went to the woman who was running this event for these school teachers, and I said, these are the problems that these women have, and they were like, yeah. But it was, and I explained, so I did a separate model. So I do a model for each of my green sheets, basically. So when I'm talking to her, I go, I can help these women move through here. And then I don't use this in an event. I never use this. It's more for my thinking of what do these women need. Do you see what I mean? So I might use it in a sales conversation or in a blog, but I would never use it at the event because that's not how I roll.
So this model is really developing your pink sheets.
Pardon?
This model's developing.
It's developing pink sheets. It's giving you a space to be able to stretch your IP. And that was the piece missing for me when I first began, that I didn't understand that a model was designed to help me think more. I thought it was just some pretty thing that you had to have to show a client. And I didn't realise that it was, the model was for me. So once I got that it was for me, I love me, so I was really excited. I was like, oh, it's for me. So I was really happy that that worked.
So the question I have is around when the known spoken problems are actually highly interrelated. And so, I mean, this model is based on distinction, actually, two different things. So if I'm thinking about new managers, the problem is they don't know what they're doing and they can't get anybody to help them. Well, they're not confident. Well, they're not confident because they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, but so then they'd be unsupported, and supported and confident is where you want them to go.
Yep.
So that's supported and confident, and if they're unsupported and not confident...
I want them to be knowledgeable, mostly, and confident.
Okay, so knowledgeable and supported would be the 2 axes.
Right.
See what I mean? So you go, okay, so you want to be knowledgeable and you want to be supported.
Yep.
So are you knowledgeable? Are you supported? Where are you at on that? And who are people that you know in that industry who aren't supported but are knowledgeable? And who are people that you know in that industry who are knowledgeable but aren't supported? And
okay, so find the bits that don't overlap.
Yeah, so yeah, and then it's like, how can you move them? So what does that person that's unsupported but very knowledgeable need to do? What is the prescription you need to give them that your event or cluster will fix? You know, that your workshop's going to help them. So when they come to you, they will leave knowing what they need to do to get
to the top right-hand quadrant.
Yeah, to the top right. Thank you. That's the whole point of life. Go to the top right. Kate. Oh, sorry, Chris, are you talking? Oh, you're very helpful. Thank you, Chris.
Hosting. Awesome. The little butterfly, the negative, boring, stuck, the open, clear, energetic, etc. Are they the known unspoken? So
yeah, they could be
Carol,
known unspoken, or they could be unknown unspoken.
So they're things you know.
They're things that I'm seeing in them, or that I'm going, okay, so this is actually what's going on here. It's not what's really going on here is my thing. So I go, okay, so you haven't got any energy and you don't really know who you are, but what's really going on here? So it's that, yeah, so for me, and then they're also traits that I see in them. And so I go, okay, and you're acting that way because, so it's a massive judgment thing, but I'm very judgmental. And that works for me. And so by judging, and then I can, because it's actually what I'm seeing, and then I go, so what is it that I'm seeing and why are they like that?
So
and then how can I fix that?
So, and it wouldn't go this way because of your market, but if you were doing this in a green sheet and this was relevant, say, in corporate world, which it could be, you might say, and you know, what I find is people that are in this space are often...
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm never going to ring them up and say, you're a nasty, judgmental know-it-all, right? That's not what happens.
That's where I'm going.
Hello.
How do you use that? You wouldn't say.
No,
people
but I
won't
say
identify.
often, if you're sitting in this space, I probably wouldn't use that in the middle of that. So I wouldn't actually show them that. This is my thinking. So this is a thinking model.
Awesome.
So when it comes to make it pretty, I would probably take that out and go, this is what you need. But for me, the IP falls out of that middle of the butterfly.
Gotcha.
Do you see what I mean?
Because
so
I
this is
couldn't
the
quite
tool
work
to make
out
it
where you were going
to... No. So I'm not going to sit there, but it's actually about stretching the thinking. That's the whole point for me of the models in this thing.
The real distinction is this is a model for pink sheets, not green sheets.
Yes. Yeah. But you use the green sheet problems. There you go. Right, and then we're time. I've got 3 people at the back going. So now you get to work on this, and I'm available. I'm just floating around like a butterfly. So if you need me to help, if you've got any questions. Exactly.
a child, 'cause what you not give them. Yeah, man seems so strong, yeah, man speaks so long, I've never been so long. Yeah, man seems so strong, yeah, man speaks so long, I've never been so long. Excuse me for a while, turn a blind eye with a stare caught right in the middle. Have you wondered for a while? I have a feeling deep down you're caught in the middle. If a line grows, would you not listen? If a child cries, would you not give them? Yeah, man seems so strong, yeah, man speaks so long, I've never been so long. Yeah, man seems so strong, yeah, man speaks so long, I've never been so long. Excuse me for a while I'm wide-eyed and I'm so down caught in the middle. Have you wondered for a while? I have a feeling deep down you're caught in the middle. Yeah, man seems so strong, yeah, man speaks so long, I've never been so long. Yeah, man seems so strong, yeah, man speaks so long, I've never been so long.
She may contain the urge to run away, but hold her down with soggy clothes and breeze blocks. Citrazine, your fevers greet me again. Never kisses, or do you ever send a full stop? Do you know where the waffles go? They go along to take your honey. Way down how we build our breakfast down and say my love, love, love. La 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 la, muscle to muscle, to toe to toe. The fear has gripped me, but here I go. My heart sings as I jump up. Your hand grips and as my heart is shutting up. Do you know where the walkings go? They go on to take your honey. Way down our sleep, build a breakfast and let's eat my love, love, love. She bruises calls, she splutters pistol shots. Hold her down with soggy clothes and breeze blows. She's morphine, queen of my vaccine, my love, love, love. La 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 la, muscle to muscle and toe to toe. The fear has gripped me, but here I go. My heart sings as I jump up. Your hand grips and as my eyes shutting up.
soggy clothes and breeze blocks. Germany, disinfect the scene, my love, my love, love, love. Please don't go, I love you so, my lovely. Please don't go, please don't go, I love you so, I love you so. Please don't go, please don't go, I love you so, I love you so. Please break my heart. Please don't go, please don't go, I love you so, I love you so. Please don't go, please don't go, I love you so, I love you so. Please break my heart. Please don't go, I need you hold, I love you so, I love you so, I love you so. Please don't go, I need you hold, I love you so, I love you so, I love you so, I love you so. I need you hold, I love you so, I love you so, I love you so. Please don't go, I need you hold, I love you so, I love you so, I love you so, I love you so. I need you hold, I love you so, I love you so, I love you so. Please don't go, I need you hold, I let you so, I love you so, I love you so, I love you so. I need you hold, I love you so, I love you so, I love you so. Please don't go, I need you hold, I love you so, I love you so, I love you so.
Weep for yourself, my man. You'll never be what is in your heart. Weep, little lion man. You're not as brave as you were at the start. Rate yourself and rake yourself. Take all the courage you have left and waste it on fixing all the problems that you made in your own head. But it was not your fault but mine, and it was your heart on the line. I really fucked it up this time, didn't I, my dear? Didn't I, my dear? Tremble for yourself, my man. You know that you have seen this all before. Tremble, little lion man. You'll never settle any of your scores. Your grace is wasted in your face. Your boldness stands alone among the wreck. Now learn from your mother, or I'll spend your days biting your own neck. But it was not your fault but mine, and it was your heart on the line.